Hey everybody, I'm Ross Johnson, your favorite co-host from the Sound of Tomorrow show on WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester. That's coming up next. We're talking about losses, like the time you're going to lose listening to the Sound of Tomorrow coming up on WAYO 104.3 FM Rochester. We're going to talk about music formation, music appreciation, that kind of thing, you know. And Heather's got a story, and I've got a little note about little BDSM. That's right. That's next. But first, we're just going to get started because we didn't do an intro this week. So, but first, that's
what do you
now
expect?
it is. Hey, everybody. What's going on? Professional radio experience is what this is.
Guaranteed. Or
It's
your
hard when
money
you do it.
back. But you didn't
hard when
pay
you-
anything. So
So, I mean, unless you're a contributor, in which case we feel bad.
I don't. Yeah, no. No, the SOT money only.
Yep. Actually, yeah. If you have not paid us specifically, which is
Yes.
the problem.
That's the thing.
Heather, can I start you off with a little BDSM?
Absolutely.
I figured.
Hit me.
So
Harder.
I sort That's the spirit. So, as is our Sound of Tomorrow way, this isn't going to get too, this won't get too interesting. Or
Yeah, that's as
engaging
racy
in
as
any way.
it's going to get.
Yep. So there's a gentleman named Zach Wiener. He was up until recently running in the Democratic primary for New York City for the city count for District 6, wherever that is in New York City, right? So he's running for city council. He did not win, but so this was interesting. So the media got hold of a video. I only saw like a still from the video. So I don't know like what was in the whole video. The media got a hold of a video of Zach Wiener just to set the scene. He's sort of he's appears to be a young guy. I think he's a guy. His pronouns seem to be he, him. Just being clear there. Just setting the scene here, Heather. So he's in a, he's sort of in a largely fairly unclothed situation with in a BDSM type situation with a, I think it would be a mistress. Is that, I forget. I don't really know the terminology. I'm not, I'm
Dominatrix?
Dominatrix. Yes. Thank you. Mistress is something.
No, that's the title. A lot of dominatrices are mistress so-and-so.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So, and of course the thing here with this was like, oh, look at, caught in compromising position, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, this is what, blah, blah. We're going to do the thing. That was the sort of,
Oh, sure. Okay.
What I'm conveying is in the tone, not so much the words. I'm not quoting when I say, oh, blah,
Right.
blah, we're going to get the thing. So he released a statement, which I really liked. Maybe I shouldn't characterize this before I read it to you, but I'll read his whole statement because it's pretty short. He says, whoops. I didn't want anyone to see that, but here we are. I'm not ashamed of the private video of me circulating on Twitter. This was a recreational activity that I did with my friend at the time for fun. Like many young people, I have grown into a world where some of our most private moments have been documented online. While a few loud voices on Twitter might chastise me for the video, most people see the video for what it is, a distraction. I trust that voters will choose a city council representative based on their policies and their ability to best serve the community. Please go to my website and read about my actions, etc., etc. And then he gives his website. I love that.
That was nice. That was
Yeah.
so nice. And that is absolutely the most reasonable thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, it is a shame a private video was leaked and circulated because that's private. That's just not
Right.
nice. With any kind of private video, if I send you a video of me like singing a little song to you on ukulele and I say, this is just for you, but it's silly. I was thinking of you. My privacy should be respected.
Yeah, sure.
So it was wrong that video got out, not because it had some kind of sexual content, but when we have our private videos, we don't want them to get out. They're private.
Yeah.
And I think he handled that just perfectly because there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Absolutely. And it's so it's well, and I think the word he used, distraction, is perfect because it's so. I guess this is nothing new, but I mean, in all of our discourse, it seems like everything is a distraction. You know what I mean? Like, there's no. We've talked about this before. Like, you can never get down. I mean, like the Zach Wiener guy. Now, I'm not in his district. I'm not a Democratic primary voter in New York City, so I didn't really have any reason to learn about him.
Mm-hmm.
But this is all I know about Zach Wiener. I mean, this is literally
Yeah.
all I know about Zach Wiener. You know what I mean? And I don't feel too bad about that because, again, I'm not a potential constituent. I'd have no reason to know about Zach Wiener otherwise.
Right. Why would you study up? You can't vote for him.
Right. But this is probably all that an awful lot of people know about Zach Wiener,
Mm-hmm.
for better or for worse. And I mean, I'm sort of applauding the statement just because I feel like it was well handled and said something that needed to be said.
Absolutely.
But, so much of our politics and our discourse is someone throws something into the wind and then you have to talk about that, either to say, either to acknowledge it or to apologize for it or to kick it out of the way, or even just to say, like, this is really stupid. I don't feel like we should have to talk about this, but you still have to do it because it's there. And that's, I feel like I feel like our news and our discourse and our politics, more so than ever, even though it's always been this way to an extent, is just like layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of like somebody's BDSM video that doesn't make any difference or matter even a tiny little bit, but we have to talk about it. So good for him. I kind of hope I kind of wish more people would be like, look, sorry. I mean, I'd be like, I'm sorry you saw me pretty much naked, but.
And some of the things I think aren't a distraction, like when we get the news out that, for example, somebody running for a governmental position has been sending unsolicited nude pictures to interns in the office, for example.
Yes, of course.
That is, as much as there's kind of a, salacious to that, that's also that's wrong. Yeah. Those interns are subordinates in the office. They did not ask for these pictures. That's a breach of trust. Whereas this, I think there was probably a lot of like, oh, look at what he did. Look at what he did. He's a bad person. We can't vote for him. But this was a completely different thing. It was a private video of two adults agreeing to have themselves videoed in like a consensual situation.
Right. And I was going to say, like, I almost said presumably consensual, but I have a hard time picturing a scenario in which you've forced a dominatrix into like, I'm sure it's possible. Right. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sure, anything is
sure.
Anything can be all sorts of situations can be manipulated by, creepy people. But, I have a hard time picturing somebody tied up with clamps, being the having forced the dominatrix to do all that. I don't know like how that would work, but again, it's possible, but I'm going to assume
it's possible. In this case, he did say it was he and a friend were having a fun time.
Yep. So
yeah, so I think some of those things aren't distractions, but I think this was thrown out as kind of a red herring of, oh, let's be shocked, and appalled. And I just love that he was like, well, here we are. Well, you didn't want to see it. I didn't want you to see it, but somehow now you've seen it.
Well, and there's so much stuff, I mean, there's so much of, there's so much open corruption. There's, there's money laundering. There's, there's all this open corruption that is sort of boring at this point, and it's not salacious. So we don't, you don't get the big front page headlines with that kind of stuff because, that's boring and we have to explain it and it's boring, blah, blah, blah. It's not salacious. It's not a picture of it's not a picture of a naked guy tied up. But that's the stuff that the things we hear about, the things we get about workplace harassment or,
right.
Another completely unrelated Wiener, Anthony Weiner, who was engaged in, sexual texts and things with underage people. I mean, that is that's legitimate. Yeah. I mean, that's a things that rise to the level of either crime or just wildly inappropriate. maybe things that should be crimes. There's plenty of that out there to talk about.
Right.
But this is the kind of stuff that gets the headline. Even some of the stuff, with like Donald Trump, where you'd see, I understand the desire to call out the hypocrisy, but you'd see like, oh, look at Melania. She's so in this picture. She's so dirty. Look at this picture where she was being a model and she's being all trampy, even that kind of thing. It's like, I understand the desire to, when you have someone who's running as the most puritanical of puritanical people, and it's sort of patently ridiculous that the person would do that. I understand the temptation to call out the hypocrisy, but again,
there are much more important things to point out than what a model does in her career.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Models
100%.
do a lot of things in their careers, and it's a job, you know?
It doesn't help. I never. Some of the people. I mean, I get when these are some of the same people who are calling Michelle Obama all sorts of names and describing her as a Trump and all that. I get sometimes that desire is overwhelming.
I know.
But
yes,
because you want to be like, but look at your wife. I get where that comes from in some cases,
right?
But it sort of doesn't help.
Yeah, and it pulls focus from the actual substantive issues.
Right.
Like the real, we should vote for this person or not. Just a person worked as a professional model. That's the first lady had a job, posing for magazines and wearing fashion clothes and whatever, that doesn't really have anything to do with policy or how the country is going to be run.
Even if you want to criticize Melania Trump as first lady, there are much better things to go for.
Absolutely.
wearing a jacket that says, wearing a jacket that says, I don't give a crap about kids, just, to make a point about how you don't give a crap about kids.
Yep. See, I thought you were going to mention the Christmas displays at the White House.
I mean, I don't know if that rises to the level of crime, but
no, I mean,
if I were going to do White House, if I were going to do White House redecorating as a crime, I think ripping the roses out of the rose garden would be,
now that most definitely
turning into some sort of
it's just thorns now.
That's
yeah,
that's a little more legit to me.
Well, yeah. So Ross, may I
be better as a
transition?
crime against be best as a crime against grammar.
Be best.
So
terrible.
Anyway, enough about Melania Trump.
May I veer sharply into a completely different topic?
Oh, I think I am thrilled for you to do that.
I have had, for me, a pretty major change in my life. No, it's not menopause yet. Still waiting. I know. I'll let everybody know, honestly. It takes a while, though, because you have to have your last period, and then it's a year out from that. So I'll have to mark my calendar and set a reminder, and then I can announce I am postmenopausal.
Because the over-under pool is like, it's very competitive right now. So
I know.
We're going to be down to the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And
right.
I am with you. I'm with you, y'all, because then I get a big bonus of no more periods. But, Ross, I bought a car.
You bought a car?
I got a new car.
You've never bought a car?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much no. No, really. I mean, I haven't bought a car since the early 2000s.
Like, did you buy that car new?
It's new to me.
No, I mean your old car.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, yeah. So you've technically bought a car before. Okay,
I have. I bought a car as an adult, but it was a very long time ago. It was the early 2000s, and I had been driving that car. And we have spoken of my car many a time on this very Sound of Tomorrow program, and how I drove this tiny old little car that no one could ever pick out of a lineup because it was just me and a teeny tiny silver sedan.
Yeah.
And
I've been chased down the street by you and didn't even know who it was.
Yeah, right. I don't think I've ever chased you down the street, have I?
Meh.
I mean,
I
we've
think you might.
definitely followed each other places, but I don't
Yeah.
think that counts as chased by.
I don't know. I saw a little silver sedan
Um,
fall. I had to dive off the sidewalk at one point, so I don't know
well,
if
I
that
mean,
was you or not, but
see, that's the thing. There's pretty much always little silver sedans around.
right.
Um, but so the brake light came on the dashboard, which I don't think I knew that there was a brake light on the dashboard. And I was like, this probably isn't great.
Like a warning light, or you just had the parking brake on?
A warning light. A warning light.
Okay.
Yeah, because I did, like, it came
'Cause
on
you
while
could-
I was,
I know you already bought the car, but I'm just saying you probably could have just turned off the parking brake.
no, it came on while I was driving. So if I'd had the parking brake on while driving, there would have been a pretty serious problem.
Oh, I've driven with the parking brake on. It's fine. You don't even notice.
I never have. But so I took the car to the mechanic, who let me know that the brakes had approximately 5 minutes before they were going to pretty much both brake lines were going to explode.
Oh.
One was already leaking pretty badly. And the other one, it was gonna real soon. Which I was, you know me, I'm always like, can you repair that? And they were like,
Right.
technically, yes. However, the rest of the car is going to fall apart because it's entirely rusted.
Okay.
And so this made me really glad I go to the garage I go to, because they were so honest. They were like, we just, we can't charge you $1,000 for this repair because something else is going to go right after that. And we don't feel right about that.
And that's what happens here. Like, you get these cars that would last forever. That's sort of like my car. Like, my car has not had a single, because I've got and I'm not as old as your car. But I've got an older vehicle I've got a senior vehicle as well. And
yeah,
it's not had, knock on wood, it's not had a single mechanical problem. But it did, like, my entire exhaust system, like, basically rusted and fell out of my car. And they sort of did a similar thing, but it wasn't that bad. But it was like, okay, this is going to cost you a lot of money, so you might want to think about getting a new car. And I was like, it was sort of 50-50. I was like, well, everything else is fine. And they were like, everything else is fine. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll spend this lot of money rather than get a new car right now. But
you've got another good many years on that, because I did that twice with my other car.
Okay.
And it was the same thing. Like, the exhaust system just rusted out because we live in Rochester.
Yep.
And they also always say, like, oh, well, you don't drive enough. And I'm like, well, I don't understand how that makes all that much of difference. Please don't at me on that. I don't want anybody to explain that to me. I don't.
It's entirely.
I don't want to hear it.
No.
I really don't want to hear it. But yeah, absolutely, that's what happens, because my car was really, 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 really good. Routine maintenance, the exhaust thing, but otherwise just great. So when they actually put it up on the lift, because they knew I did not want to accept that they had just called to give me the news that my car was very close to dead.
Mm-hmm.
So they put it up on the lift, and they're all like, see how crunchy this is,
fell.
see how crusty that, pretty much.
I'm picturing the whole bottom just falling out into the, they pick it up in the entire,
Yeah, because they really, really, really wanted me to know, like, hey, lady, you need to address this situation.
You are clearly invested in this car.
I know. Yes. And they must get that a lot, because I think it's pretty normal to get relatively attached to your car. And I think it's also pretty normal to absolutely hate car shopping.
Right.
So then I asked, like, okay, well, how safe is it to drive? And they were like, oh, no, not safe at all. Don't try to slam on the brakes. Nope, not safe. And then they were kind of trying to be reassuring. They were like, well, you'll know, because the pedal will just go right to the floor and you won't have brakes. And I'm like, okay, this is terrible.
Don't worry. I mean, you'll have warning before you crash into a wall, because the brakes will not work before that.
Right.
Like immediately before that.
Yeah. So I was like, oh no. And I would think maybe you also have this in mind, because you get the news, like, your whole exhaust needs replacing. And so you start thinking, like, what are my options if I didn't get this repair made, if I were to get a new vehicle? So luckily I already had in my mind what I wanted to get. So it was pretty wild. I went and bought a small SUV.
Oh,
Yeah.
for carting your cat around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. You know how much I dislike snow driving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something I really wanted was all-wheel drive.
Okay.
So I had it in my mind. I was like, I'm going to get this small SUV. That's good. And you will be pleased to know it's just like every other small SUV you see on the road. So once again, you will not be able to pick me out
I
of a
will
lineup.
not be able to see you coming. I'm sort of glad with the way you chase me, I'm sort of glad you did get the brake situation resolved, honestly, because
Yes.
that was your precision chasing of me was gonna that was gonna be a problem.
I know, because I couldn't slam on the brakes anymore.
Yeah.
But it was funny because I picked up the car in time to take it over to my sister's because we were having a family gathering. And it was hilarious because my parents got a small SUV late last year.
Mm.
I pull up next to it. I'm like, these may as well just be the same car.
Yeah.
Jeepers creepers.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a huge change.
Yeah. It's yeah, it's a little obnoxious. I think it's easier as long as you're not, I don't know. I mean, when I got mine, I got it new, so there was no haggling or anything like that. Like I don't any of that.
Yeah, I'll
yeah.
admit I went to a dealership. I did not haggle. Now it's so great. And this, of course, is going to mark me as ancient as I am. Way back in the day when I bought my other car, there was stuff on the internet. Like the internet existed and you could look things up, but there was not the plethora of stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just wasn't quite as savvy as I am now. But it was great because I could look up all different pricing scenarios, all different options, like around the city, around the country. So when I was looking at the prices, I was like, that is what they go for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's good. I mean, I understand, like you can get I'm sure if you're willing and able to do that, I'm sure you can get a good deal on, if you're looking for a used something that is, but I don't know. I'm not good at that. And I would wind up paying more, I think, probably by the time I left, and it would just be terrible. So,
yeah. Well, and the thing with me was, since I know nothing about cars, like absolutely nothing about cars, I wanted to do like the certified pre-owned instead of just buy something off of someone's lawn.
Right.
Because I just knew, like, even though my mechanic was so good, like I love my mechanic so much, they were saying, if you go to buy it from someone and they say that you can't bring it to us to have us look it over, just walk away from them. They're trying to pull a fast one on you. Bring it in. We'll look it over. We want to help. We're here for you. It's so sweet.
Yeah.
Like they were really good. But so I definitely went to a dealership, and it was the same one where I got my other car 12 centuries ago.
Yeah.
So it was, as far as car buying goes, it was the easiest experience possible, and it was still terrible.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, I sort of want to just, I think you can almost do this now. Like, I feel like if I've got another car, I would except Mike probably wouldn't let me do this because he's like, no, he likes to do things the hard way, because he thinks it's better that way. But I'd kind of want to just like go online and like, I want to like open the bank website on one screen and the car dealer website on the other screen and like pick my car and then get the money from the bank and then just be done. And that's it. Or you know what? So here I submitted the forms. Just call me tomorrow and tell me what's going on.
Yeah, you.
I don't even want to go and pick it up.
Right
so
now.
If you could just drop it off, that'd be great.
You absolutely can have that done now.
Yeah,
there were options to just. I could have just ordered this car online, but having never driven one before, nor having driven many similar, I kind of just was like, can I drive one of these things? What's it like?
That's the problem. You do kind of want to actually, like with Mike, like Mike's tall.
Right.
I mean, I can fit into anything, but Mike's tall. So like there are cars that he literally sort of can't drive because he's too tall. So that could be a problem for people.
Yep. And for me, I'm so short, that could also be a thing. But yeah, I mean, it was great. I did the thing where, got myself all set, tried to check out where everything was so that I knew if I had to turn on the wipers. Though that's standard. You just never know, right? Things are wacky. And really, by the time I got, a mile down the street, I was like, yeah, this is good. It's good. I think it's going to work.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah. I had to park in a parking lot last night. That was an adventure.
Just
pulling into a regular parking spot. Because you remember how small my car was.
Yeah.
I'd just get out of it and I'd put it in my purse and bring it inside with me.
Yeah.
And now I drive one of those things that looks a little bit like a shoe.
Well, I might be there soon.
You can get a small SUV and then we can match our boring little cars.
Oh my God. I don't want a small SUV. My car, my fit is enormous as far as I'm concerned. It's way too big. I need if they have a smallish Mini Cooper, that's what I want for me.
Except
I guess I need to be able to fit the dogs in it. So I guess a normal car would be fine, but I definitely do not need a smallish SUV.
I don't know. The dogs would really like it.
I don't think they would care at all.
They don't.
They're just going to get in the back seat, and I don't think it's not like an SUV has a giant back seat.
No, it does. Well, I mean, again, compared to, my Festiva-sized vehicle I was driving.
Right. Compared to a normal car, I don't.
Right.
They don't. When they make an SUV, they don't put all the extra space just in between the back seat and the front seat. I don't think usually. Yeah.
Nope. But yeah, now I can haul things. I can haul the cat.
It's good.
And the best part is it doesn't fit in my garage. So now I can fill up my garage with a lot more garbage.
That's pretty good.
I'm very excited. So yeah, thank you for letting me tell you about my major shift here.
I'm proud of you.
It's a whole different world.
I think everyone's excited about that.
I hope so.
I can maybe make a segue here. You want me to try?
Yes.
Okay, so a car you've had for a long time might be something that you would become very attached to because it's something you became very attached to when you were young.
Yes.
Much like music.
Oh.
What? I'm just stalling for
and
time
one
right now
might
until I pull
also
this up.
play music in their car.
There you go. See? Segue.
Are you still pulling that up?
No, I got it. So,
okay.
so this is an article I found from Slate.com, our old friend Slate.com, Mark Joseph Stern. It's actually a little older article, but I assume the science is still sound. It is about, the article is called Neural Nostalgia. Why do we love the music we heard as teenagers? And I think to myself, why do we like the music we heard as teenagers? Because here's the thing about me. I don't know if this is good or bad. I don't know if this is a humble brag or just a fact about me. I feel like I was a teenager in the late 90s and the music was sort of terrible. The popular music. So I do not necessarily love, and it was also at a time when you didn't have all the choice of music. You had to either go buy a CD or listen to what was on the popular radio.
Right.
And
I have friends who would play stuff in their cars.
Right.
Or hang out at record stores.
I'm just not that big a hootie. Well, that's fine if you lived in a city, which I did not. So we didn't have any record stores. We had Sam Goody at the mall. So, where you weren't really encouraged to even sample things. So, I was not that big a Hootie and the Blowfish fan. So I am not that deeply attached to the music of my teenage years. So I am the exception here. However,
I am deeply attached to the music of my teenage years because I did have record stores and I did have friends who got a hold of their older siblings' records and put them on tape for me and stuff like that. So I'll admit, I can picture the sound of Hootie and the Blowfish, except maybe I'm thinking Dave Matthews.
It's a very similar vibe.
Do they sound the same? Kind of that that honking kind of vocal sound.
Yeah, there's a lot of honk.
I didn't do it very well.
And there's a lot of worms. This is not either of them, but who's this? What's the?
Wait, is that Blind Melon?
Got into
yeah.
Yeah.
Was that
kind of
Smashing Pumpkins?
No, It was somebody else still, but they're all
Crash Test
very similar.
Dummies.
It's in the
Yeah,
same
they all
genre.
honk and they do that weird voice that you were just doing. Yeah. I'm afraid you can tell we're not fans, but we're like, it's a lot of honking.
It's mostly honking. Yeah, it's just it all sounded the same, and it was not that great. And there was again, there's always that's always, whenever people say like, oh, music's not good anymore, or movies aren't good anymore, it's like, well, maybe the popular music that you hear on the radio or the big movies that people are big in the theaters are like, it doesn't mean there's not good music being made. You know what I mean? So at that time, there was also good music being made. They just weren't playing it at the mall in Elmira.
Right, nor at the grocery store or the gas station. That was where you heard all of the weird honking.
Right. So, the article posits again that a lot of people are attached to music they listen to in high school, and you may wonder why. So, to understand why, I'm quoting from the article here, to understand why we grow attached to certain songs, it helps to start with the brain's relationship with music in general. When we first hear a song, it stimulates our auditory cortex, and we convert the rhythms, melodies, and harmonies into a coherent whole. From there, our reaction to music depends on how we interact with it. Sing along to a song in your head, and you'll activate your premotor cortex, which helps plan and coordinate movements. Dance along, and your neurons will synchronize with the beat of the music. Play close attention to the lyrics and instrumentation, and you'll activate your parietal cortex, etc., etc. And it goes into more details. This is very similar to me to and I'm not sure where this data that we were looking at came from. I want to say it was Scientific American, but we were talking about reading and how different aspects of reading activate different portions of the brain, including things you wouldn't think of, like your touch of the book or whatever you're reading, plays into that, all that. So, your different ways of interacting with music. Whether you're just listening to it, whether you're singing along out loud, whether you're singing along in your head, whether you're dancing, all these things can do different things in your brain. So then Mark Joseph Stern goes on to say, memories are meaningless without emotion. And aside from love and drugs, nothing spurs an emotional reaction like music. Brain imaging shows that our favorite songs stimulate the brain's pleasure circuit, which releases an influx of dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and other neurochemicals to make us feel good. The more we like a song, the more we get treated to neurochemical bliss. And then so blah, 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 science. The upshot to all this is that all these things happen whenever we get really into a song. But when we're teenagers, specifically between the ages of 12 and 22, our brains are undergoing rapid neurological development. And basically all of that is, not to mix metaphors, but all of that is sort of on steroids. So all the reactions that our brain has to because our brain is undergoing a formative period at that time, all those reactions, all the things that music does to our brain are like hyped up to 12.
That makes perfect sense.
And that's sort of the neurological, at least according to this article, and I think it sounds reasonable. That's the sort of neurological reason that music that you listen to when you're a teenager, again, between 12 and 22, gets sort of solidified in. There's also a second piece to this, and then we can chat about this as much as you'd like, of course. Because of all this, and this is sort of a secondary piece of this, during the same time period, for the same reasons, you're sort of developing your sense of self. And that's sort of a thing that gets locked in at this point as well. So the music you listen to, you're forming memories of it. You're doing things that you're hanging out with friends. You're going to dances. You're hanging out at the mall. You're doing things that you're doing things. You're forming the sense of yourself. Music is sometimes the backdrop to some of these activities, or just these thoughts you're having of as you're sort of developing yourself and your sense of identity. So that ties in as well. You might not have a very specific memory of like having a formative experience and the music that might have been playing in the background. You might have that memory, but it all gets tied in. So for all of those reasons, the music we like, or even, I mean, I would think, you know, there's probably something here too. And the article doesn't get into this. I don't know if I would think based on all this, I would think it wouldn't have to be even the music you liked, just the music that was there.
Mm-hmm.
Ties in those memories. And I will say, like, we talk about this music I am not crazy about.
Yeah, but we know
It does
it.
take me back. It does.
Yeah.
It does absolutely conjure, evoke those times again, for not always for the better, but it does give me that sense. So I would, I don't think this would just apply to music that you liked. I think it's just music that you experienced.
Yeah, to me it sounded more like if you really love a song, you get a lot more of those pleasure chemicals in your brain though.
Right.
And I thought it was interesting that you mentioned the specific chemicals because sometimes I will say that hearing a song I've been wanting to hear for a while is like a bath for my brain. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how literal that was.
Yeah. 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 I mean, that's kind of literally what's going on. And that's, I think I would suspect, and this is just my own sort of interpreting the science here. I mean, I would suspect that, you get some of those pleasure chemicals going on as an adult, obviously not as strong as when you're a teenager, but I think also the memory of those, the memory of old pleasure
Right.
chemicals,
Yep.
I'm sure is maybe not almost as good, but it does something,
It's got to factor
it's a
in.
memory of something nice that is a memory of, a memory of feeling good on top of a memory of liking the song.
Right. Absolutely. Another thing I was thinking about why sometimes, and I don't think this is just me, when I was young, there was always a first time to hear this genre of music or
True.
a first time to hear this band that sounded like this style. And I know that as I've gotten older, I'll hear something that I can tell is obviously good, but it just doesn't hit like it would have if I'd heard it when I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other really popular bands that they played at the goth clubs. So I know some of the songs, but I just never got deep into them, like Depeche Mode. I know a lot of people are like, they are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, like, I do not doubt you at all that they're amazing. I just kind of missed my Depeche Mode window.
Yeah.
And I don't even have the interest that I had when I was young. And I was like, I would listen to stuff my friends were listening to, but only if I liked it. For some reason, I never felt that peer pressure to get on some kind of bandwagon of like, oh, well, okay, all my friends are into this, so I better pick up and study these things because this is what's popular amongst my friends group. I
Hello,
don't
fellow
know
youths.
why.
It is I, Heather.
Yeah, well, but you know how that goes, right? Because I don't know if you hung out with people who were really snotty about music, but I certainly did, and I certainly used to be one of them.
Yeah.
But because I got to be a David Bowie fan so young, I was kind of unimpeachable. Like, no one could come at me with like, oh, your taste in music is terrible. Because then they would be admitting that they either didn't know or didn't like David Bowie.
Right.
And then who's uncool? Because
Yeah.
that was not a thing that was said in the circles I ran in. So I think that was part of it too. Like, I already had this cred from when I was a weird junior high person.
I think for the people
Bowie
I knew,
fan.
it's funny you said Depeche Mode, because I think for the people I knew, Depeche Mode was that thing. And I was not really into Depeche Mode. I like Depeche Mode now more than I did then. But I think Depeche Mode was the unimpeachable, like, if you were into Depeche Mode, you were super, you knew it was cool, and you were cool,
Yeah.
and your music taste was unimpeachable.
I don't feel like you can come for Depeche Mode.
No, I don't think so either. I mean,
like I said, I kind of missed out a little bit on my I'm a huge fan of theirs window, but if I meet someone who's a huge fan of Depeche Mode, my general assumption will be like, it's a cool band. They probably like other cool bands.
Probably smart person. I mean, I think I think you said a couple interesting things though. Because so you had mentioned like, hearing a new thing for the first time. I mean, I always I still find myself, I mean, if there's hope for elderly people such as us, premenopausal old ladies like you and me, you know, I'm always, you know, like I love music, you know, like movies are another thing I like. So I compare it more to that. But I feel like there's always new stuff to discover, and there's stuff that there, and I do get that. Cause I will discover like a new genre, once in a while. And it does give me sort of that same feeling of discovery. I mean, I think it's harder to, I guess I'm patting myself on the back a little bit for this, because I like, what I like about myself is I try to keep very open-minded about new things as much as I can all the time, because, you know, I try to keep my attitude of like, why would I not want to find a new thing that I like? Mm-hmm. You know, I think that gets genuinely harder to do though, as you get older. I mean, and older, I mean like over 22 or 25, you know, it just gets harder to do because you feel like your tastes are locked in. And you have a lot of, you know, sometimes it's not even just that you haven't experienced something. Sometimes you've had bad experiences with it. Like you've known somebody who liked this kind of music or whatever, and that colors your, you know, I've had things where like I sort of had to wait like a couple decades to come back to something because I had bad associations with it, or it was like, or it was just like the boring music your mom listened to or something. And you're like, oh, you know what? This is actually, there's stuff here that's actually not as bad as I thought. Or, you know, I just associate this with like old people. But now I can go back and sort of re-examine it. I like to do that once in a while, and I think it's possible. I mean, I think the compensation to losing that initial spark with some ways is, if you're open to it, you can have more interesting tastes. Like, I think like there's stupid stuff that I like from when I was a kid, right? That's like stupid. You know, it's like, that's stupid. All
right.
Well,
like what? What do you think is stupid?
I don't know. I mean, like just something like, I don't know, like He-Man, or I don't know, something He-Man's
fun.
Right. But what I'm saying is like, there's stuff that I probably could not get into today. You know what I mean? Like, if I saw it for the first time today, I'd probably be like, all right, well, that is for kids, and I have no interest in that. But because I had that interest when I was a kid, I have like a, you know, right. I still have a warm feeling about it, and I can enjoy it. So you lose that. But on the other hand, I feel like if you keep trying to develop, if you've made any effort whatsoever to sort of develop your taste, I feel like you know, yes, when I was a kid, like the sugariest grape soda might have been the best thing in the world. Mm-hmm. Now I want something that's maybe a little more complex, or maybe I don't, and that's okay too. Don't get me wrong. But you know, I feel like I can, you know, maybe I can't appreciate things as easily, but I can appreciate them a little deeper.
For me, it definitely all depends, because I find I have this annoying habit of, I'll hear something that comes out now and I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's great. That sounds exactly like what so-and-so did over here, and so-and-so did over there, and so-and-so did over there. Just because I've heard that style, that genre, that instrumentation lineup. But then I get even more obnoxious because I'm like, oh, and the lyrics aren't nearly as interesting to me as when the other band did this style of music. And at least because I mentioned having been like a real snot about music, it's just rude. I'm glad I don't do that to people anymore. Because if somebody plays me something or sends me a mix, I won't like write them back song by song going like, nice try, but check this out. It sounds like so-and-so who did this way better back in 1972, you know?
I'm capable of that. Although I find sometimes when I really analyze it, I'm sure this isn't the case with you because you are legitimately, you know, you have very good musical taste. Sometimes I find like
music,
the thing that I'm comparing it to, like, isn't really any better. It's just that I heard it first.
Yes. And like that is definitely, yeah, that's definitely like, I don't know why. Or even there are places where I do not necessarily gravitate toward that genre, but there is some song from that genre that I heard when I was 14 years old, and I like it because I heard it when I was 14. But things that sound pretty much exactly like it and are right in that genre bucket, I'll be like, I know. I like that one, but not any of these. That's how my brain is wired.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do find myself sometimes just listening to what I have in my music catalog, but I have an okay music catalog. I mean, we have also talked on the show about the months where I only
David
listened to Of
Bowie.
Montreal. Well, and also there were those several months where I didn't listen to any band other than Of Montreal.
Right.
But I was also going
That was
through
12 years. Okay. Several months.
Sometimes I'm going through some things.
I need someone to go through the SOT catalogs because there was...
It was a while.
I will say it's a
really
good decade at least. When I'd be like, oh, what's your hot pick? And you'd be like, I've listened to the next song on that Of Montreal album.
Hey, they have a lot of albums.
They have like 4.
No, like 18 or something.
Of original music?
Yeah.
They're not, no live albums, no remixes.
There's a live album.
They have 18 albums all full of 100% original songs.
I might be guessing at 18. They have a lot.
All right.
If we weren't on the air, I would look it up.
All right.
They're very prolific.
Sure.
So, you had mentioned how...
Shut up.
How... It might have been longer than that. I was going through some things.
I'm looking some things up right now. You go right ahead.
So you had mentioned how, I had my car since since I was a young person, how we've developed our musical taste when we were young people. To jump from the car to another topic here, the importance of mourning losses. Because I will tell you, I did shed a tear for my old car, and I thanked her for serving me well. I know that she cannot hear, nor does she have a gender, so why did I ascribe her one? Beyond me. But I have an article here from NPR called The Importance of Mourning Losses, Even When They Seem Small. It's by Kavitha Cardoza and Claire Marie Schneider, I think. And they go through a little intro about, the difference between a really big loss, perhaps the loss of a parent or a spouse, and how, people show up for you. They bring you casseroles and things. But what about something maybe smaller? A neighbor you kind of knew passes away, or you were really waiting for a family reunion and then it gets canceled. Your friends probably aren't going to gather around and check in on you and ask how you are. And maybe they're not even going to acknowledge it as a loss at all. If someone rude might even say like, well, what's the big deal? It was just an event. It got canceled. Get over it.
Yeah.
But turns out it's important to mourn these small losses and respect your own feelings. There is a bereavement expert, Kenneth Doka, who calls this kind of thing disenfranchised grief. And he coined the term in 1989 to capture the feeling of loss that no one seems to understand, that you don't feel entitled to. And he says that disenfranchised grief refers to a loss that's not openly acknowledged, socially mourned, or publicly supported. And I think a lot of people
like when I die.
Have trouble. No.
Like when I die, my friends are a few of my friends are sad, and people are like, really?
Don't even.
I'm just saying it's okay if
cry. Don't even.
I'm just saying it's okay if you're only
seriously. A little sad. You stop. So it goes on to say, when we're dealing with these kinds of losses, like your beloved car driving away and leaving her behind.
I'm sorry, by the way, before you continue, you've completely negated my point by being really sad at the hypothetical idea that anything could ever happen to me someday. So, so I want to apologize for that. Apparently, I will be missed.
Stop it.
Sweetie, you're way older than I am. You're way older than I am. It's not something you're going to have to deal with. You're like 90 years old. It's not. We're not worried about me. And still premenopausal. It's amazing.
I know, right? Jeepers creepers. I told you to stop. So, back to the article. We are, says Doka, to know that these types of losses are valid, natural, and normal, like when you drive away and leave your car. And it says that, sometimes these losses aren't the same for everyone, but when most of society goes, well, okay, sorry, but like, what is the big deal? How can you handle this? And the first suggestion is to get to the root of the grief. And it says you might mistake the grief you're feeling for depression and anxiety. And who's Defoe in here? See, you got me all off my therapist David Defoe says that some of the symptoms are the same between grief and depression and anxiety. And there's numbness, there's trouble focusing, there's feelings of being overwhelmed. But he says your feelings of grief won't go away unless you address them. We say depression and anxiety are conditions of the mind, while grief is a condition of the heart. The grief that is associated with loss has to be dealt with on the emotional and heart level. You can't think your way into better grief. And it says that even as more people are getting vaccinated and life is slowly returning to normal, Defoe says it's important to deal with these feelings because they won't go away. They stay with us. I'm like openly crying. Just a sec. For real. Like, the fuck? Oh, did you pause?
I did.
No, we're still going. Oh, we're back.
Well, now we're going.
Now we're going. Sorry about that. Wait a minute. What did I do? All right. So where was I?
You were saying that
even as more people get vaccinated and life is slowly returning to normal, Defoe says, it's important to deal with these feelings because they won't go away. They stay with us. When we don't take time to appropriately grieve our pain and emotional stuff that we put aside, it comes out. We'll get angry, we'll get apathetic, we'll start realizing there's some things that used to not bother us, but now we're easily bothered. So a couple of things that you can do is talk to someone and tell them what you need. Because even your friends who might be saying like, well, I don't get it. What's the big deal? Why are you so upset that your neighbor passed away? You barely even knew him. Just talk to them, communicate your needs, say what's going on with you. If they're your friends, they'll be there for you. And then it's suggested here by Defoe that you find a ritual to honor the loss. Because again, like you might not go to your neighbor's funeral. You don't hold a ceremony when you drive away from your car. But you could do some journaling. You could create a piece of art. You could plant some flowers in honor of someone. Run a race or get a tattoo. It's what I like to do. Both of them. I run a race and then I just go and I go straight to get a tattoo.
Right. You run to the tattoo parlor.
Grief. I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which luckily isn't far because I'm not a very good runner. But just remember, all grief is processed at a very personal, individual level. So rituals will be specific to you and how you're feeling. We don't get over losses, says Defoe. We have to then figure out a way to move beyond them. So I thought that was kind of nice and affirmative because it can happen so much that even it's easy when something happens to try to write it off for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm really upset about this, but I'm being stupid. It's dumb of me. I need to cut it out, shake it off, and move on. And I think with a lot of things, it can be nice to have a reminder, like, it's okay to feel your feelings.
Well, that's it. It's okay. And I think that's my key takeaway from that is that it's okay and it's good to acknowledge your own feelings. It's hard. We all have these things every day. It's hard to, I think it can be hard to acknowledge everyone else's little losses. You know what I mean? Because I think there's, I don't know. I don't know if any of us has the emotional wherewithal to support everyone we know for all of the small losses that they may feel very strongly as we're dealing with our own losses that we also feel very strongly. So it's hard to, I think it's hard to get or expect all the time that support from outside. But I think it's very important to acknowledge and accept those feelings in ourselves, and also to not be, you'll see it a lot of times on social media even. And I've had this reaction, at least viscerally, where someone's like, oh, I'm very sad because my tree died or whatever. And you're like, okay, really? There are children in cages and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not sending anyone this letter. I'm not like responding this way. Right. But in your head, you're like, I know, like I will drop I will drop an ice cream cone on this, I will drop an ice cream cone and it makes me want to cry. And I'm sort of exaggerating, but like that will, but not a ton. I mean, that's, so it is not hard for me to get to a place where like, I am really upset about something that I know I'm not going to get a lot of support on from the outside world. But it's a legitimate feeling, I'm not going to go running around like, I'm not going to like, I'm not going to run to the border and find find a kid in a cage and be like, did you see that I dropped my ice cream? It's good to keep these things in proportion. But, no, I think our feelings are valid and we need to support them in ourselves. And again, if we can't be there for everybody about every small loss that happens in their life, we can also try not to be jerks about stuff, which is something that I have to remember again, because I certainly have that reaction of like, really? There's climate change and you're sad because of your car. You know what I mean? Like there's
I know. Yeah. And I definitely, again, though, I think that's another thing where that emotion in yourself, because I could have that too. Like, really, aren't there bigger problems? Like, could you just stop? But I keep that inside.
Yeah.
I use my in my head voice.
And I do it to myself.
I do it to myself.
I'll have that reaction and be like, really, Ross, you're upset about this and blah, blah, blah. And that's not fair it's not usually fair. I mean, again, there are different ways of expressing those feelings. But if someone's like, oh, my grandma died. And you're like, really? Because I dropped my ice cream cone. So,
I know, right?
There are different ways of expressing that. But it's not, in general, it's not really fair of me to respond to other people that way. And it's not really fair of me to respond to myself that way when I have those genuine feelings.
Yeah. And it's, just reminders to try to be kind to ourselves and others when we can.
Absolutely. Well,
you know what I'm not upset about? And what's absolutely not a loss, but instead a major win.
A major win.
A major win is the fact that coming up next on WAYO LP Rochester is the fantastic program Music Matters. So thanks for sticking around for the SOT, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Heather.
Yeah.
I didn't write it. I didn't write anything for this week. So
no.
Do you just, anything you want to throw out here at the end?
Still?
You just want to do any?
Do
you have a song you'd like to sing?
Can you do your Dave Matthews voice?
This is my impression of all popular 90s music.
All of them.
This is my impression of the grocery store in 1997. There was a bar.